All right. So you ready to jump into this?
Always ready for a deep dive, especially one about Far Cry.
You and me both. You sent us some pretty cool stuff about Far Cry New Dawn.
Yeah.
So we're going to dig into all of that today.
Oh, excellent.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah. So for folks out there who maybe haven't played New Dawn, first of all, have you played Far Cry 5?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Far Cry 5 was my introduction to this series, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So New Dawn is a standalone sequel to Far Cry 5.
Right.
Meaning you don't have to play 5 to understand what's going on.
Exactly.
But it definitely probably helps to have that context, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like, you get a lot more of the little Easter eggs and the references and stuff like that
Right.
if you played 5.
For sure.
But even if you haven't, like, the story in New Dawn stands on its own pretty well.
Okay, cool.
You're not going to be totally lost if you jump right in.
So, for someone who's never played either game, how would you describe New Dawn? Like, what's the elevator pitch? Okay, so imagine this. It's 17 years after a nuclear apocalypse. The world's a mess, but nature's kind of having a party.
Okay.
Everything's overgrown and colorful. You're in Hope County, Montana, but it's not the same Hope County you remember. It's been reclaimed.
By nature.
Yeah, but also by these, crazy gangs. And one of them is the Highwaymen, led by these twin sisters, Mickey and Lou.
Okay, so it's post-apocalyptic, but not all doom and gloom.
Exactly. It's got this really vibrant art style, almost like a punk rock aesthetic.
I like it. It's not your typical wasteland.
Yeah.
And we're fighting against these highwaymen.
Yep. And they're tough. They've got all these crazy vehicles and weapons. And Mickey and Lou, they're like the poster children for post-apocalyptic chaos. They're brutal.
Right. And they grew up in this world, so their whole perspective is different.
Exactly. Like they don't remember the old world, so they're not afraid to tear down what's left and build something new, even if it's on top of everyone else.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah.
So you're this survivor. Mm-hmm. You're customizable.
Right.
And you're like the leader of this. Mm-hmm. What is it? Like a settlement?
It's called Prosperity. It's basically the last bastion of, good people in Hope County. You're kind of their only hope.
Okay.
Against the Highwaymen.
And you're building it up, right? Like base building is a big part of this game, isn't it?
Huge part. And it's not just for show. Upgrading Prosperity actually gives you tangible benefits. You get better weapons, stronger defenses, new vehicles.
Okay.
It all ties into the gameplay.
And it's not just building stuff. You mentioned crafting, too. What kind of stuff can you craft in this game?
Oh, man, everything. Weapons, ammo, healing items, upgrades for your base, even special ammo types that set your enemies on fire or something.
Nice.
It encourages you to scavenge for resources and experiment with different combinations.
So the world is basically your crafting bench. You mentioned upgrades for your base too, right?
Exactly. You need to find specific resources like ethanol and whatnot to upgrade different parts of Prosperity. It's like a constant cycle of exploring, scavenging, crafting, and upgrading. It really keeps you engaged.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a hallmark of Far Cry games. But in New Dawn, it sounds like they've taken that to a whole new level with the base building and all that stuff.
Totally. It adds this whole other layer of strategy to the game.
Yeah.
Do you focus on upgrading your weapons first, or do you reinforce your defenses so the highwaymen can't just waltz in and steal all your stuff?
Tough choices. And then there are these expeditions. These are like dot missions that take you outside of Hope County, right?
Yeah, they're like these little mini adventures that you can do whenever you want. They take you to all sorts of crazy places, like an abandoned amusement park or an aircraft carrier in the middle of a swamp.
That sounds pretty cool.
It's a nice change of pace from the main game world.
So what's the goal of these expeditions? What are you doing there?
It depends on the expedition, but usually it involves infiltrating a location, grabbing some valuable loot, and getting out as quickly as possible. There are usually alarms and stuff, so you have to be sneaky and quick.
Sounds intense. So it's not just about gunning your way through everything. You have to use some strategy and stealth.
Definitely. And the enemies in the expeditions are usually tougher than the ones you find in Hope County.
So there's a real risk-reward element there. You're risking a lot to get some good loot.
Exactly. And the loot is worth it. You can find some of the best weapons and gear in the game by completing expeditions.
So to kind of summarize, we've got this vibrant post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah.
Base building, crafting, these crazy expeditions to far-off places. It feels like they really packed a lot into this game.
They did. And it all runs surprisingly well, especially with the new updates for the PS5 and Xbox Series X.
Oh yeah, let's talk about those updates. You mentioned 60 FPS, and I think that's something a lot of people might not understand. So what does that actually mean, and why is it such a big deal?
Okay, so 60 FPS basically means the game is running at 60 frames per second, which is like twice as fast as a lot of games.
Okay.
And what that does is it makes everything look smoother and more fluid, especially when you're like running and gunning and stuff. It also makes the controls feel more responsive, which is really important in a fast-paced game like this.
So it's not just about making the game look prettier. It actually improves the whole gameplay experience.
Exactly. Like you'll literally feel the difference when you play it. It's way more immersive.
And that's not the only update, right? I think there were some visual improvements too.
Yeah, the graphics got a nice bump. Everything looks sharper and more detailed, especially the environments. It's really impressive what they've done with the lighting and textures.
So all of this sounds amazing, but there's one thing that's been bugging me.
What's that?
The game is called Far Cry New Dawn, right? And there's this whole emphasis on Hope County being reborn after the apocalypse.
Yeah.
But then you've got these expeditions that take you to places outside of Hope County, like totally different environments.
Right.
It makes you wonder, like, what happened to the rest of the world? Like, is everything else just a wasteland? Or are there other places out there that are kind of rebuilding and thriving, like Hope County?
It's a good question. The game kind of leaves that up to your imagination, which I actually think is really cool. It gives you the sense that there's a whole world out there to explore, beyond just Hope County.
Yeah, it's kind of like the expeditions are just a taste of what's out there.
Ah,
Maybe we'll see some of those other places in future Far Cry games.
who knows? Maybe they'll even do a whole game set in one of those expedition locations. That would be awesome.
Oh, that would be cool.
Right.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything here. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Just that, even though New Dawn is a spin-off, it's a really solid game in its own right. It's got a great story, fun characters, and the gameplay is super addictive. Plus, with the new updates and the fact that it's on Game Pass, there's never been a better time to check it out.
Couldn't agree more. It's, like you said, it's post-apocalyptic, but it's not all doom and gloom. It's colorful, it's got this unique energy. It seems like a really fun experience.
Definitely.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And for everyone listening, if you haven't played Far Cry New Dawn, what are you waiting for? Go check it out.
Yeah, seriously, go play it.
Mom, it's not gonna be easy.
I know, but it's our only choice.
Working my ass off here, but it feels worth it.